Hey everyone, welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy, I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. I guess based here for real now. We just moved into a new apartment. That's why there wasn't an episode last week, because I spent a good 2 solid days cleaning up my gross old apartment so that Naomi and I could get our security deposit back. And you know what? Success. We got 91% of our security deposit back. So, what a victory. All we had to do was live in a grimy old apartment that was falling apart for a year and a half. And then we got most of the security deposit back. And tomorrow I'm headed to Florida for my sister's wedding. So, from a crummy apartment to a crummy state. I don't know. I've never been to Florida before. Naomi and I are very apprehensive. An interracial couple traveling below the Mason-Dixon in 2019? Let's see what happens. I mean, let's not see what happens. Let's have it be just very regular. Hey, let's stop talking about this stuff. Great episode today. This is H. Alan Scott. H. Alan is, I was going to say an old pal. I guess old. I met him for real a couple years ago. So, you know, not old at all. I guess new. But I like him a lot, and he's got an interesting story. If you don't know who H. Alan is, why don't I read you his bio, though? Based in Los Angeles, H. Alan Scott has been writing and performing for over a decade. He's appeared on The Jimmy Kimmel Show, Ellen, CNN, Fusion, and MTV, and written for TV Land, Vice, Fusion, Out Magazine, Newsweek, and Nerdist. He's the subject of the forthcoming documentary Latter Day Jew, and he also co-hosts 2 wonderful podcasts, Out on the Lanai, a Golden Girls podcast, and You're Making It Worse on the Starburns Network. I've been on both of them. I'm a old school Golden Girls fan. I used to watch Golden Girls. It was on Saturday nights, I believe, paired with Empty Nest for a while. And I remember my parents would always go out on Saturday nights to dinner with friends of theirs. And we would always have a babysitter. And I would just ignore whoever the babysitter was and watch Golden Girls and Empty Nest. Anyway, H. Alan's great. We talk about the fact that he grew up Mormon, what that meant, what faith means to him. Eventually, H. Alan converted to Judaism. We talk a lot about class and what that meant to him growing up, what his economic class meant growing up. A lot of other stuff. H. Alan's great. I hope you enjoy this one. If you do enjoy what you hear, please subscribe to the show. You can do that on Apple Podcasts and Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. All the episodes are on Spotify. If you want to download the episodes, they're all on beginnings.libsyn.com. You know, I've talked to H. Alan's co-host from You're Making It Worse, Elliot Glazer, on a previous episode that was pretty great. So check that one out. I've talked to Elliot's sister, Alana, on a previous episode. Generally, the show, if you've never heard it before, I talk to musicians and artists and comedians and writers and thinkers and much more about their childhoods. So please subscribe. You can find me on social media at Andy Beckerman on both Twitter and Instagram. And that's about it for now. I gotta go pack and head off to the nightmare state of Florida. But please, by the time you listen to this, I'll already be knee-deep in wedding. Because I'm taping this intro today, Monday. You'll hear it Thursday. Who knows? Maybe Florida will have killed me by then. Anyway, pray for my soul and Naomi's. And enjoy this talk with H. Alan. I don't think I've seen you with with your hair dyed?
Oh yeah. I recently had a whole hair change where I had it really long for a while, and then it was blonde, and then I cut it into sort of like a bowl cut situation, and I made it yellow.
What motivated it?
Just boredom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's most things in my life. Like any drastic changes I do to my physical appearance usually results from boredom.
Not to jump in, but I was wondering. I'm like, you're from St. Louis, right? Mm-hmm. Is that like a suburban-y area?
Well, I'm from the suburbs. I'm from a suburb of St. Louis called Kirkwood.
Kirkwood.
Yeah, about 20 minutes outside the city.
I wonder
30.
if did you change things? Like I came from a very boring place, and so I think a lot of my like anxiety around I need novelty all the time in my life now to feel.
What do you mean by novelty?
I need look, I've been listening to REM's Green album a lot,
Okay.
but
I've never heard that.
It's great. But
Yeah.
I didn't listen when I was a kid. I was a
Yeah.
kid when it came out, so I never really paid much attention to it. But
Michael Stipe always freaked me out. I could never get into him.
in what way?
He just felt like he'd be horrible to have a conversation with, and I just don't like. I tend to not even enjoy the art of people who I feel like I can't have just sort of like a stable conversation with.
Yeah, he seems maybe too sincere.
Yeah, yes, and he also feels like he would take those long pauses, making everybody in a normal brunch situation awkward, and it's just I don't want to support or endorse that.
But I'll listen to old stuff, but that's new to me a little bit because I've listened to it a bit since it came out, since I was a kid. But I'm like just literally this week I got into it, and next week I'll have another album. It doesn't have to be like
Matchbox 20,
yeah. Or maybe Candlebox.
Oh yes,
Anything with a box in it. I'm
or what was the not the Foo Fighters, the guys from, remember that movie City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan, and there was a song from it, the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yes, probably.
I think that's what it is. Yeah,
I'll just assume that the Goo Goo Dolls.
people listening are going to be like Goo Goo Dolls.
There was a time in America in which the Goo Goo Dolls were on every movie soundtrack.
But that City of Angels, that particular song from that movie, I don't know why I can't remember the name of it now. It was like number one on VH1, which really doesn't matter that much, but number one on VH1 for like a year.
Video Hits 1.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But I need in some way like a new album every day. Again, I'm trying to say that it doesn't have to be like literally new, but something that I haven't really paid much attention to or haven't heard like all the time. I need constant existential churn. I need entertainment churn. I need just a constant roiling.
I'm the exact opposite. My boyfriend and I, we have been together for a little under 2 years now, and we've probably watched the entire series of The Office maybe 7 times. And because we just don't, we do the same thing every day, but B, it's like we just keep going back to it because we don't care about anything else.
So routine. So you like the routine, but but
physically, there are times that I do something, and my boyfriend's is opposite in that like he can have the same thing every day. I can't eat at the same place, which is, I guess I'm just contradicting myself left and right, but I can't eat at the same place 2 days in a row. Like he can go to Burger King 5 days a week. I can do Burger King 1 day a week. Preferably once a month because I don't really like Burger King, but I need to have the separation in what I'm eating, but yet it doesn't have to be that way with like The Office, but with my hair it does. I don't know, I'm strange, I'm an onion, I'm complicated. What can I say?
Why don't we peel away the layers?
Peel away, baby.
Well, have you thought about that? Because I think a lot about the contradictions I have and what how they have powered me through life so far. Like the big one for me that I still haven't figured out is being very uncomfortable with commodifying my art.
Okay.
And being in a town that is all commodified art. I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that contradiction and thinking about how that contradiction has in fact held me back in certain ways.
Interesting. I don't think about money that much. And I also am such a shameless like slut when it comes to just sort of like I'll do anything, you know what I mean? Like I I do
You're a
this-
financial slut.
I am. I do this podcast called You're Making It Worse, and it's with Elliot Glazer and Brent Sullivan, and we get ads on the network, and I'm always just like, I'll endorse anything, I'll promote anything, like, jizz, vitamin juice, I'll do it. Like, I don't give a fuck. Whereas like Elliot and Brent are definitely more strategic in what they will and won't put their names to, and I'm so like, I don't know. I just don't care about the perception people have of me because I feel very sort of, I think, confident in who I am and what I do, that like, I just don't care. So I'll make money in any way I have to make money. But there are things I won't do. You know what I mean? Like there are things that like I won't go get a regular job. Like I won't do normal human things. Like if I'm struggling financially, I won't be like, oh, I should drive for Uber. I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Because I won't do it. Even
Was
though
that ego?
it might be, probably, yeah, I guess. But like it's been okay so far. So
maybe because I was thinking, I grew up in the suburbs. I need a
Yeah.
churn of novelty because the suburbs were so like static,
Yeah.
and atmosphereless. Like there's nothing, there's no culture. It's there's
Well, there is. It's just it's culture ripe for comedy writing. So like they don't know that it's culture, but it exists in our brains because we see it. They don't.
yes, it's the plain yogurt of existence.
Yes, exactly. Nobody wants plain yogurt.
No.
But a lot of people in LA do. But
Well,
I
that
don't
tells
like
you
them.
that
Yeah.
tells you about a lot about the city that's the center of cultural reproduction in the United States.
I mean,
or
plain yogurt
globally.
is always the one that's just left when all the other yogurts are gone, and that should tell you something.
So it's more okay. Maybe this is where we can pull on a thread that there is a kind of confidence in self, so a willingness to experiment in terms
Yeah.
of how you will look.
I've always, I mean, not even just look, everything, even in my career, I just don't care about how things are supposed to be done. And so, like, I remember starting out in stand up in St. Louis and then Chicago and then New York, where we met. And we met out here, actually.
You met Naomi in New York,
Yes.
I think.
And starting out in St. Louis, I would do the traditional stand-up thing, and then in Chicago, I would try to do the sketch thing, and it got real exhausting and boring because I hate improv, and I hate actors, and I hate really people. And so I stopped gravitating that way and stopped sort of existing in that way. And then in New York, I would do stand-up a lot, but I also always knew that like I was never going to be like a road comic, or I was never going to be, I also was never going to be like a stand-up comic that you're going to remember any of my jokes. I just knew that I was a personality. You know what I mean? Like I knew that I wasn't going to be that comic that people saw as a stand-up. I was going to be that personality, that person who could hold his own within a 15, 30-minute set, but yet couldn't, like, you would just have an enjoyable 30 minutes, but then you probably wouldn't remember anything I said, like, a year later, which is fine with me, because if you remember my personality, that's what I want you to remember. So, like, I always kind of just
Yeah.
existed in that way.
Well, there's the rise of the Kiki comic now, I've noticed.
Yes, there's a lot of that.
Where I'm like, I mean, it's great for us for couples therapy, where we can just like, oh, you guys can just talk on stage. Great, here, come please do the show.
The ability to talk and just effortlessly exist and be present in a really authentic but yet humorous way is, I think, a skill that I have. And I think I don't have a lot of good things skill wise. So like, I'm glad that I have that. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that I just suck at. And this is one thing that I don't suck at. So I feel proud of that.
Well, okay, so were you always that confident in yourself, like even when you were a kid, that you could
Yeah.
experiment? I think I remember you saying on an episode of You're Making It Worse, talking about like you dressed differently when you were younger.
Yeah, I always I mean, of course I've had my moments of trying to fit in and exist in my own way, but I also I grew up, gay and Mormon, but yet I come from a very liberal family. And so like my parents and family were always really accepting of me being the weird gay one, like I always joke that my mom would like look to my brothers and I, and she would say, when you kids grow up and have kids, and then she would turn to me and go, or adopt. Like there was always a caveat from me. So I had a really good home setting to sort of exist in my own way and be myself and grow into myself organically. And then it got weird at school when people were all doing the same thing and I wasn't doing that thing or interested in that thing. Like I remember in middle school, people were really excited about, or everyone was like skateboarding and doing hacky sack shit. You know what I mean? And
Really?
Yeah, it was like a 90s Midwest thing, I guess. And they were playing Pongs a lot too, if I remember right. I don't know. Anyway, I wasn't caring about any of that. I just wanted to get home for Oprah. And I like, and I was that weird kid who had to watch Oprah or The Golden Girl. Or I had to have these TV things, or I would skip school to see the opening day of a movie. Like I just was, and I didn't care that didn't fit into the mold of what others did, because I realized that, yeah, I don't fit into what they are doing, but by being myself, I'm the funny one and I stand out and I get attention. And that was enough for me. That was like exciting for me that I could still exist in my own way. Now, of course, that meant I didn't have like a shit ton of friends. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like the most loving, accepting time, because it was pretty fucking lonely. But at the same time, I was my own best friend, so it was okay, I guess, because I was getting the attention that I want. Like that's what I really wanted. Like I didn't care about not having someone to kiki with. Like I had Oprah to kiki with. I didn't need anybody else. So like I was having fun and people were laughing and I, did okay.
I was thinking about this before you came over, but because someone is making a documentary about you. Mm-hmm. Is it done? Is it completed?
It is done. Yeah. It's going into the festival circuit now, which is exciting.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Is a lot of this stuff, like talking about your journey.
I love that word, journey. My journey.
Has it calcified in some way? Have you created a story about yourself that has
it's all been
solidified?
What do you mean by solidified?
Like when I think of my past, I bring up a lot of the same things on this show when I have to like reveal something about myself, because in some way I've like, of all of my experiences, there were ones like when I'm talking to someone that like they were the brightest in my head, and so when I have to like just say it on the spot, that's what like popped into my head first.
Yeah.
And then as the shows, I've been doing this for like over 9 years, that those like bright lights have formed a certain path, and like the other memories and the other ways I existed kind of like faded a little bit. So there's almost this like kind of like spine of who I am that was created by this show that is like fairly accurate, but is also like I'm no longer interrogating or interacting with my past in a real way, unless something novel comes up in the show.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. I do think as artists we tend to write our own scripts for how our lives go and how we publicly talk about our lives, because there is a monetary asset to how we communicate ourselves and our identities, because that's who we are. That's our art. I mean, it's comics. And so, yeah, I'm sure I've done that, because there are certain aspects of my life that are pretty boring, I think, that aren't ripe for comedic value. And so like, I don't want to share them with everybody else. You know what I mean?
So it goes back to you being a fiduciary thought.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take the money. You want to hear me say something embarrassing about myself? I'll do it. Just pay me. No, but there are moments that I think stand out, and that becomes the public story of who I am. Now, if you ask like my boyfriend, he'll tell you probably a totally different story from what, if you watched everything I've done in my entire career, you would probably know about me. And he would probably be like, he's really white, he's really boring, he's really annoying, he's really stubborn. Whereas I don't think that, I probably come off as really white publicly, but it doesn't like necessarily come off, I think, in my public self, because a lot of my comedy has been, it started out doing stand-up and mainly relegated to like gay shit, because that's what society pushes gay comics into being. Like it took me, like I joke that like it took me getting cancer, which we haven't talked about it, but I'm sure we will. It took me getting cancer to get out of the Time Out gay section for my comedy listings. Like I would be on shows that had nothing to do with being gay except for me being gay, and I would always be pushed to the gay section. And then somehow I had this thing that happened to me that maybe made me more mainstream. I don't know. Like it was so strange that was happening.
Then you were in the Time Out chemo section.
Yeah, great honorary section. They created it for me, actually. Yeah, I mean, I do think we tend to adopt the narratives that we talk about in our art because that is what people like about us, and we want to be liked, and we want that affection coming back at us. And if people are responding to what you're saying and putting out there by the stories that you're highlighting in your over the series of the podcast, or like in my own stand-up or my own films or whatever, then that's what I'm going to share publicly. And the boring stuff I'm going to keep pretty quiet, not a part of my art, because who cares?
I mean, well, there's a certain... I care in the sense that, like, when you interact with someone, then sometimes, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying, like, sometimes people will adopt the public story.
Yeah.
Like, they become the public story. Mm-hmm. And then they reduce their existence to one dimension, which is the public story.
Yeah.
And I think that's like there's a danger in...
There's a safety in it, too.
Yeah. There's a safety in doing that, and that, like, you're sure-footed. You always kind of know, like... You're not going to be surprised by something bubbling up from some past trauma.
But it does.
Up.
But that said, it does happen in that, like, now when I do shows and stuff, I rarely ever will do like how like you have a stand-up show and sometimes you have like a meet and greet after, you have like pictures or something, or if I'm giving like a thing at a school, you hang out, whatever. I won't do those half the time because a lot of the time I talk about cancer in my set now, and people will come up to me and give me really heavy stories about what happened in their lives and how cancer's touched them. And cancer has touched so many people in both sad and powerful ways. And it is emotionally draining to get that weight put on you because I'm the vessel on stage. I'm the one I'm in control. This isn't a Q&A, this is me just talking. And they're listening and receiving and comprehending in the way that they comprehend. And if they take something from it, great. If they don't, whatever, fuck off, but still pay me. But yet afterwards, and interacting with them on a human level, then all of a sudden I have to then be the vessel for that sort of father who died or brother who got diagnosed last year or whatever. And then it reminds me of other people who I know in my life who have died or gotten sick or who are sick. And it's like it's this weight that, like, I'm being a professional here and performing, and this is my art, and you're taking it, but I can't go home every night and have these thoughts, or I'm not going to be able to get up the next day.
You become a tragedy avatar.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not even just with cancer. It's with lots of things. It's sometimes even with being gay. It's sometimes with, the gay experience in society and art and how that works. And I, like, the contradictory thing in my life is that, like, yeah, I'm gay and I talk about being gay and I'm very open about my life on stage. But at the same time, like, I don't like most gay people. or no, I take that back. I don't like gay culture in a lot of ways.
Right.
I find gay culture sometimes to be very toxic,
right.
Especially gay media.
When Elliot was on, we spent, I think, the first half hour.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, he's great at that. I'm a little bit more lenient than Elliot, but yeah, and that's something that I often don't want to interact with, or if I'm talking about, because I converted to Judaism after chemo and stuff, and I'm doing anything Jewish, and people come talk to me about Israel. They come talk to me about the different areas of Judaism and problems within Judaism. There's a lot of problems within Judaism, and it's like
bagels these days.
Yeah, yeah. But like, I can't take all that on because if you want to take me out to brunch and buy me food and have like a civilized conversation about the recent Israeli election, sure, we can do that, and I'll be calm and I'll be able to do that. But after a show, I'm not taking, because I'm not your friend.
Well, there's the deception. I see this with Naomi a lot, that because you are a friendly, approachable person on stage, that therefore you are friendly, and Naomi is. She's very close. You're very close to who you are on stage. She's very close to who she is on stage, but it still gives the deception that you want to you're like a Christ figure for everyone else's tragedies and opinions.
I think it's like it's sort of the crutch of being, I'm Midwestern, and I think the crutch of sort of always saying please and thank you to things sometimes and being friendly. And I think there is sort of an aura that people like Naomi and I give off that people do want to come talk to us. That happens to me all the time. And on one hand, I like that I have that because I think it's an important skill to have, especially within my work. But, it's also the downside of it is that, like, because I'm an artist and because like I have to dive into like the deep vessels of my emotions sometimes to create the work that I do, it can be really heavy to be approached with some things.
Well, that's kind of why I asked about, the creating, like calcifying your past in some way. Because I think there tends to be, when you take these things in your life, these like existential things in your life, and you pull them out of your brain as an object as an artistic object. Mm-hmm. You're somehow cauterizing that stuff. Like I'm curious about you. You said Midwest. I want to talk a little bit about faith and Mormonism because I'm curious about how that actually affected you, how that built you as a person. But I was also thinking about like there's a lot of repression in the Midwest outside of like New York and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There tends to be just like repression.
There's repression in New York
rampant.
and Los Angeles too, but yeah,
there is, but at least
kind.
there are. I think that it's more therapy is more accepted in those two places, and so there's at least a little release. Whereas I grew up in a place where like it was shameful in Pennsylvania. It was a shameful thing if you wanted to get therapy.
Yeah.
Or it was a thing you were like, it was court mandated or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like you had to really be
I
in
had
some
court
kind
mandated therapy once.
For
Yeah,
what?
when I was a kid, when my parents divorced, we all had to go to like Kids in the Middle. It was what it was called.
But it was court mandated
Yeah.
as part of the divorce
Yeah.
for
very strange.
you guys.
For me and my brothers, yeah. I hated it because I was like, I'm not in the middle. I'm in first place. I'm the star of this family. My brothers are boring. They're very boring. My mother will tell you that. They're all fuck-offs. I mean, they're wonderful people, but they're idiots.
Wait, okay, hold on. I want to get back to that question then. But is it ego or is it were you always kind of that confident? Or
I don't know what, I think I take after my mother a lot because my mom is also she's more passive than I am, but she's very forward in her thoughts and her way of existing. And I was always the same way too in my siblings. Like all of my siblings are fairly, they're good, normal people who have children and they've gotten married and they have a very normal job and they lead very normal lives that I see as very boring and that I think my mother also sees as very boring. And it's this, and she's not quiet about expressing the desire to do more and to exist in different ways. And even though she chose a very traditional path, but unconventional within the standards in which she was expected to take in terms of being a Mormon woman, she went in different directions and did things. But to you and I, it would be very conventional. To a Mormon, not so conventional. And I think I get a little bit of that. So I don't know if it's ego, or if it's just like, well, I'd just be being an asshole. I mean, I think we are kind of assholes. I think my mom's an asshole sometimes, and I know I'm an asshole.
well,
But I don't mean to be an asshole.
Sure. It's not a malevolent asshole.
No, I'm not. I don't care. I don't want to have you hurt. I just want you to know how I feel.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I've had to actually repress that.
I think Naomi and I are a lot alike in that respect.
I
We're
think
very honest in how we feel. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am too, but I've had to like in the past couple of years realize like the way I want to inflict that on someone in a like, I need you to know how I feel because I want you to feel bad.
Oh.
And I'm like, that's not a correct way. That's not a good way to exist.
Naomi has this joke or something she said maybe when you guys did You're Making It Worse. I forget, or maybe it was just us talking, who knows, but she was talking about that a time in your relationship or just in general in relationships where like of course you deeply love someone and you want to be with them always and you can't imagine life without them, but some days I just don't like you today, which is like I think such an honest thing to say, but at the same time it also says a lot about like her and I characters in that like we'll just express that. Whereas I think other people don't, because it could maybe come off as offensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
or insensitive. But it's not. It's not insensitive. It's just us expressing how we feel, and you're in relation to how we feel. I don't know.
I mean, where did your mom come from?
My mom is from Missouri. So Mormons started in upstate New York, and then they moved to Missouri. And then from Missouri, they went to Utah.
Did they get kicked out of Missouri?
Yes, they did. They actually, it was the first, well, one of the only states to ban a religion. Like the Mormon or the Missouri governor banned Missouri. Of course, that was unconstitutional. But yeah, so they were kicked out of Missouri, and that's where Joseph Smith died, and then or Brigham Young. Brigham Young second. I always confuse the two. And then they went to Utah. So my mom is from a family of Mormons that she always jokes, we survived like the Mormon plague of Missouri in the 1800s. And so she's there. She's from Missouri and Jackson County area where Joseph Smith went to, the Promised Land, the first Promised Land. And then, she was just raised Mormon. But the reason why I said she had an unconventional path for a Mormon is that she decided to travel and sort of like...
But not on a mission.
No, she never went on a mission. And so she went and she worked in a bar in San Francisco, and she like just kind of found herself in her own ways, you know? But she was always Mormon. She just didn't decide to like, well, the women couldn't go on missions then, but like, because that was in the 70s or 60s. So she went and she did her own work, and then she came back to Missouri and she started to become a nurse, and she met a man, my dad, who's Catholic, and she decided to marry him. And like, she just took very unconventional paths for a Mormon woman at that time. But yet to you and I, it's very conventional what she did. She went, she lived, she experienced her 20s a little bit, and then she went and she married a man and had kids. Boom, bam, boom. But for her, it was very scandalous. And then she divorced him.
Huh. Was she religious in the sense of, I'd always divide it kind of like rule following versus having faith. I know you're not inside her head, but like, do you, and maybe you've talked to her.
I know. I think her and I have a similar approach to faith in general. Like, it was never necessarily about how you practice the rules of practicing your faith. It was how you, how you're a part of the community, how you're giving back to the community, but also your sort of faith in the community. And she was always more faithful, just like I am as a Jew. I'm not necessarily a incredibly religious Jew by any means, but I'm also, I wouldn't say secular. I'm very faithful to, you know, my Jewish faith, and to the Jewish people, but I'm not like a religious nut. Right.
Well, I thought about that too earlier before you came over, and I was like, well, to choose to be Jewish, you have to have some measure of faith.
Yeah.
I think if to choose to be any religion, it doesn't just come out of like, well, I like menorahs, so yeah, let's do that.
But it's interesting because I don't think of Judaism as a religion, even though I know it is. I know that in terms of the language in which we speak, we have to say this is a religion and you're choosing religion. But I don't think spiritually and in terms of my own faith, I have to speak within the terms that society says I'm supposed to.
But so you wouldn't have chose it if it was just like dreidels and latkes. Like,
I mean, those are pretty good.
They're great, but like, you know, I'm not Christian,
but I don't
Christmas
feel like
cookies.
I chose it either. That's the other thing. Like, it
felt right.
It's not even just so much that it felt right. It was that there was something inside of me that, you know, every sign pointed to me going in that direction from even when I was a little kid, and it just organically happened. And then I knew as an adult I had to do something about it, but it was always there. The feeling was always there throughout my life. It just wasn't always as obvious as it was when I was an adult.
What was the feeling?
Well, when I was a kid, there was always this, especially going through Mormon sort of baptism school, I forget what they call it. I would always talk with the elders within the church, and there was certain questions and things that I had that they didn't have the answers that I liked to, and so they delayed my baptism because I was never like 100% on board, because I had all these questions about why do we focus so much on heaven or the celestial kingdom in Mormon faith, and why are we so focused on God when we don't even know if that thing exists? And then they kept saying he, and I was like, well, how do you know it's even a man? I don't understand. Like, I didn't understand it just didn't make sense to me how simplified everyone was making this idea of what happened to us after we die. And then also, why are we even focusing on shit that happens after we die? That seems really counterproductive, you know, because you got all this time before you die. And it just never clicked for me. And then, of course, I went through with it because my mother wanted me to get baptized, and I was a kid, I had to do it. But then as an adult, or in my teenage years, I started being obsessed with comedy, and I was always obsessed with comedy and movies and performers, and like performers like Judy Gold and Bette Midler and Barbara Streisand, of course, and Nora Ephron I was obsessed with, and Woody Allen too. I was gravitated towards Jewish performers, not knowing they were Jewish, because I didn't know. I'm Missouri. There was 2 Jews in my school, so I didn't know anything about Judaism, but I was always gravitated, and my comedy was always influenced by Jewish comedy, not knowing it was Jewish comedy. And then in college, a college counselor asked if I was going home for High Holy Days, because she just assumed I was Jewish because of the way I did my comedy and the way I existed, and I didn't know what she was talking about.
You had payos.
Yeah, I had no idea what any of that meant. I was so confused. And she then gave me some things to read, and it was funny because in that moment then I kind of realized that all of those questions I had when I was a kid were being answered, or at least addressed, within what I was reading about Judaism. And so it wasn't so much that I was just like, oh, that's for me. It was like, oh, this has always been in me. And then I lived my 20s and, got in a lot of trouble and didn't convert, because I figured I would just marry a Jew when it became legally acceptable for me to get married in this country. And which is such a strange thing to actually have to say out loud when it becomes legally acceptable for me to get married. But then I got sick, and when I was going through chemo, it wasn't so much me getting sick that led me to actually take the step and convert, because I always knew I was basically Jewish, without the logistical paper saying I am Jewish. But people oftentimes are like, oh, you got cancer, you decided to convert because you were scared of death, which is, I think, a really stupid thing to say, because it simplifies a decision that wasn't even a decision for me. Everyone has to have black and white answers to everything.
Judaism's the worst one to convert to if you're afraid of death.
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. But also Judaism's the worst to convert to because it's so fucking hard sometimes. Like, they can make it really difficult to convert to Judaism. It's not like, a Mormon can just become a Mormon, which is strange. The other thing, too, which I often talk about, is that in Mormonism, there was no options for me. There was no options to not believe in God. There was no options to not say that heaven's a thing or to question even that. Whereas in Judaism, there is that option. And that's a big difference, which is why I don't feel Judaism to me is a religion necessarily. It's a way of thinking and existing. And it's very different than the rules of religion that I grew up with in Mormonism. And I really decided to convert during chemo because I had a lot of time on my hands. I mean, they make you read a lot of shit when you convert to Judaism. And I was at chemo 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. I had a lot of time to read. And so I did it then because it was the first time in my life that I had all this free time. And
you could just dive right into Deuteronomy.
Yes. And now I'm a Jew. And it's Passover.
So it was, but is there a component of it where it is like a spiritual component? Like there's all this kind of like these existential questions that you had when you were a kid. And it's like, I think of the way you described it, I think about it like you're sick in some way. And then you go to the doctors and the doctor goes, oh, you've got whatever, chlamydia. I don't know. Yeah. And you're like, oh, thank God there's a name for this thing. Yeah. And there's like a sense of relief in what would you call it? Like no, I had some name for some like jargon that I came up with for this, but like nominal relief, something like that, where you once you name something, that kind of like
it's settled for you. Yes, that if there's an answer to it and it's settled.
Yeah, this is not an ongoing mystery in my life. So like there's that kind of existential, there's that nominal relief.
I don't feel that.
There wasn't any.
That was never a draw, and I don't feel like that's ever answered within Judaism. Nothing. I don't have any answers.
But the fact that I'm not even saying like the answers, but I'm saying that it fit. That there's I had these questions. I grew up Mormon. Mm-hmm. I had these questions. Mormonism is not even like addressing these questions.
Yeah.
And then, but wait, there is a structure, a spiritual structure, whatever, if we don't want to call it religion, something that is answering these questions.
Well, no, I don't. I don't. Yeah,
or addressing them, or like wrestling with them, struggling
there's a conversation happening about them, an academic, intelligent conversation that is open to interpretation and questioning, which for me, that is fundamentally the most important thing, because even though I say, the questions that I had were answered when I was reading the things. It really wasn't an answer. It was just that I found my people that were talking in the way that I think. And it isn't so much that they have the answers that I need, because I still question a lot about God and what happens and where we go and the reason why things exist the way they do. But at least I know that there's a community out there willing to have a conversation the way I have and the way I think. And that's how I know that I fit with these people. And for me, religion, and this is where how Mormonism has impacted me, I think. And I always say, like, I had to be Mormon in order to become a Jew, because I don't think I would have ever found myself without having the questions and the roadblocks that I had when I was Mormon. But Mormonism, there is such a huge focus on community, and you support your community, you back your community, regardless of anything. Your community is everything. Community is everything. And in my life, community has always been everything. Like, the community of people who put up with my weirdness as a kid allowed me to, like, my family, my own personal community at home allowed me to be interested in the things I wanted to be interested in without telling me that they were wrong, or I couldn't, or I should be going playing baseball or whatever the fuck boys are supposed to do. Like, I was able, my community allowed me to become who I am. And community is just so incredibly important. And that's what I love most about Judaism, is that, like, there is this community of people that, we have different opinions. Jews have a lot of fucking opinions and no one agrees. And there's that joke that you have, you belong to one shul, but then you have the backup shul when you don't agree with the rabbi at the one shul. Like, it's this back and forth within Judaism, and that's what I love about it.
There is a certain kind of, like, you can walk into any temple and feel, maybe not an ultra Orthodox temple, but you can walk into any temple and feel.
Well, even then, I mean, I don't think you'll ever feel belonged, but you can feel like, even though the ultra Orthodox Jew won't look at me as a Jew,
won't look at me as a Jew.
Yeah, we're not Jews to them. But
and I came out of a Jewish uterus.
That said, like, if you.
Juderus, by the way.
You had to. You had
so
to.
Sorry. So sorry.
There is this sort of even appreciation for their devotion, even if they don't agree with you and you don't agree with them. There is fundamentally, in my opinion, I'm sure a lot of Jews will disagree with me at this, there is a baseline of respect, regardless of how different you approach your Judaism. Even if they don't think you're a Jew, if you'll still be the Shabbat goy or whatever that will go help them turn on the stove in New York or on Friday night or turn off the stove. You know what I mean? Like, it's there. It's just spoken in different ways.
So one of the things I kind of wanted to go back to then. So if there's also the sense of this kind of community that gives you the confidence, what gave your mom the confidence to kind of go off on her Rumspringa, whatever you want to call it, going to like San Francisco and being a bartender when, when Mormonism would tell her to become a housewife? What is
I mean, you're supposed to go to school or BYU, Brigham Young University specifically, and you're supposed to then find a Mormon to marry in your early 20s, and then you marry them and you have the 10 children you're supposed to have, and you give back to your local community and blah, blah, blah. And that's what you're supposed to do. And, part of the film Latter-day Jew, which is the documentary you brought up earlier, is talking about, I mean, the whole conceit for the documentary is that I'm getting ready for my bar mitzvah, but really I'm talking about what it means to choose your own identity, regardless of what your past or society tells you you're supposed to go in, and actually lean into it and go with it and learn how to be the best Jew possible. And over the course of filming and over the course of me getting ready for the bar mitzvah, one of the things that I learned is that the confidence that I got to do what I did in my life and do in my life, I get from my mom in her own ways, choosing to be different in the ways that society says you're not supposed to be different. So she decided to go work in a bar and marry a Catholic man and then divorce him. And then instead of trying to change her son's sexual identity as a young age and lean into him going into being more of a boy and more of a regular straight boy, she allowed me to blossom and be against people in the church saying, this kid is showing risks. This is a high risk kid here who's going to be gay someday. You need to nip this in the butt soon. And she never did that. And that takes a shit ton of confidence, self-confidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is she just like that? Or was there something that happened in her life?
I don't know. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think in things like this, like, why are we the way we are? Why is, like, Naomi and I, in that similar what we were talking about earlier, why are we the way we are? Sure, you can point to things in our backstories that may have influenced why we do and say the things that we do. But in reality, I think fundamentally it's a spiritual, sort of natural, organic thing that people have. And our personalities come out. And sure, things are learned, things that our beliefs, some are learned by society, of course, but there's something in us that drives us in these directions to think in these ways. I don't know why when I was a kid going to Mormon school, I had the questions and I had the confidence to then question these adults and say, I don't believe in this or I don't understand this. A kid shouldn't do that. A kid's just supposed to accept what an adult tells you. And I was this asshole kid who was pushing back against these adults. And
you
I
had
don't
the
know
space. I mean, I think of a lot of stuff in terms of diagramming people and boundary conditions and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I was a questioning kid because my parents gave me the space to question. They did give me like I wasn't allowed to do anything I want to do, but I could question stuff within certain regimes, within certain kinds.
But why did they have the instinct to do that?
I do think that's part of
in a book. Or?
I think it's Jewish culture. You're allowed to question things.
Yeah.
Eventually, you have to follow the rules, but you're allowed to question. You're allowed to like discuss and argue for your point of view, and maybe even win the day.
Yeah.
If you can argue correctly. I mean, they wanted me to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
Like when I after undergrad, I had a philosophy degree and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, I guess I could be a lawyer. You know, I argued a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My parents thought I was going to be one, so might as well, apply. Mm-hmm. And I did. But then I had a panic attack and I was like, I don't want to study the law. Like the minute, do you ever like do one of those things? I call them like, they're like almost like post-coital, like your brain snaps into, and you're like, oh shit, I don't like this person.
Yeah, I had that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have that from my parents. My one of the best things about, I think, my mom is that my mom to this day doesn't know how I make money, and that's cool. Like, she just has confidence that I'll make it work and I'll do the things that I do. And like last night I have this drag persona that I do at Sadie Pines, and I came back and I Venmo'd my mom the money because like she needed it for something related to the family, and I Venmo'd her and she was like, you made all this last night? And I was like, yeah. But she doesn't quite get how I make money because she just trusts that I will and I'll do the things that I know I'm going to do well. And I think for me, I had that when I graduated high school and I was doing some stand-up and stuff, and then I moved to Chicago and I was like, something in my brain, society fed in somehow and said I need to do something normal. I need to have a real job or be professional, because comedy and personality, I'm not going to make money off my personality. It just didn't make sense to me how that would work. And so I went into politics, which is not a business to make money. But I worked in politics for years, from college until 2006. I worked for Democratic campaigns like Hillary Clinton, Anthony Weiner, Wesley Clark, bunch of other Democratic candidates. Well, I did a lot as fundraising. So I was a communications person within fundraising because I was able to use my personality to convince people to give money. And then I did a lot in communications. And it was soul crushing because my personality was being lost. I was using my personality to get someone else elected, and that was great because I was good at it, sort of. Anthony Weiner lost, but I still I was able to use my personality, just not in the way that I wanted it to be used. And then I kind of had that snap. It wasn't a panic attack. It was just sort of a snap. Well, it was kind of a panic attack, where I just kind of snapped and said, no, this is bullshit. I don't want to do this. And I stopped and I focused more on stand-up. But But I've had a lot of those. Like even coming out to LA, I worked on a show and I was in a writer's room and I hated it. It was the worst thing ever. I mean, the whole sort of professional structure of comedy and how you're supposed to succeed in this business by getting on staff on a show and working as a writer and then hopefully getting your own shit someday. That pissed me off because it wasn't what I wanted. And I thought my personality was getting lost, and I had the arrogance to be like, I don't want to work for these people and make these people funny when I know I'm the funny one.
It's a structure created by
arrogance too. It's a lot of arrogance.
Well, I mean, it's a structure created by straight white dudes. Like straight right. Wait, let me even add an extra adjective: repressed dudes. Because I do want to wind
Ivy League
back.
educated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because I think about this, like Naomi was like saying about like, well, I got to come up. Like I can't. I did this joke on Seth Meyers, so I can't ever do it again. And I was just like, fucking Louis C.K. made that rule up.
Yeah.
That's this like secret sexual abuse, not now, but like at the time, this secret sexual abuser made up the rule that you're not allowed to use material. Like you do an hour and then you throw it away. That's not like a hard and fast stand-up rule.
No,
that's
not
a thing.
at all.
That's the thing this fucking creep made up.
Also, why are these fucking rules? Why do they even exist? It just
because someone powerful made again, the people in power who tend to be straight white males make the rule up, and then because they're in power, that becomes that
the gold standard.
That's the structure of the thing that what you're doing, whatever. So I think it's particularly difficult, like because you tend to not you personally, but people tend to internalize. Oh, I'm not fitting in here. There must be something wrong with me. It's the same thing where I was talking to like my Lyft driver today, and she was saying she was talking about like being poor, and there's something about her fault or someone's fault for, and I'm like, I didn't want to like get into like an argument about socialism and capitalism, stuff like that, but I'm like, it's not. I mean, maybe you made some like terrible moves, but like in general, it's not your fault. It's a structure that's built to impoverish most people in favor of a handful of like very wealthy people. So yeah, there's like individual, you could be, I'm not saying you again, but like you could be a particular asshole and then not work in a writer's room and just be persons no one wants to be around. But also like if you don't exactly fit in, it's not necessarily your fault. It's the fault that it's like, it's a very like repressed kind of like.
Well, and I felt like it was my fault for years in doing stand up in New York because I was doing the things that everyone was doing to get ahead. And I was celebrated for having my own personality and having my own take on things and stuff and being different. But at the same time, I was doing the thing that everyone else around me was doing, chasing the stand up, getting the gigs, doing the things and trying your best to get staffed or get whatever. And then when cancer came, there was this shift in my brain that all of a sudden I was just like, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be pleasing other people just because I feel like I'm supposed to be pleasing these people. And I also, in some weird way, like I started, because I couldn't physically perform for a good like 2 years. And so I had to write more, and I was, did articles and stuff, and people were responding in ways that I had never seen the response with my stand-up, and I certainly never got with being staffed on a TV show. And I realized that like I have a personality that can connect with people, and I just need to find the ways to monetize that personality. And because I'm a shameless monetized slut, I will do any way I can to try to put my personality into something in my own way and do my best to make money off of it. And, I don't have a lot of money, but I do feel like I've figured out a way to exist off my personality and do projects that speak to who I am. And also even in my relationship with Michael, I mean, he's a designer, Project Runway, and creatively we collaborate on so many different things, if not drag, other things. He makes things for my shows, for the film. Like there are, and so you create, and even with my friendship with Elliot Glazer or Brent Sullivan or so many people, it's like we create this sort of small little community, back to community of funny, where we're all supporting each other in our own ways, but yet not saying we have to be like each other.
Yeah.
We're not having to exist in the same way as each other. We're just existing in our own ways and giving each other sort of praise and a stage to fly on our own way.
What economic class were you when you were growing up?
Very poor. Very, very poor. We lived, my family, there were 8 people living in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. It was very tight. And I had to pay for college myself. And I've always been poor. And I've always found ways to exist and make money. And I stole a lot of money when I was a kid from the movie theater I worked at, because I would sell free tickets and then I would pocket like $10, and that's what I would eat off for the week. So I did what I had to do to survive.
Yeah.
And
So you've always you've had that engine in you, and
I've always been real scrappy.
I think it's like a class-based thing too.
Yeah.
Like, so, because I mean, if we can kind of draw the picture a little more robustly, like you had this kind of you had this kind of opening that your mom gave you to kind of be who you were, and you also had this hustle in you because
You're poor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we try to talk around the word poor a lot, and people are embarrassed about not having money or being poor or being broke. And it's a hard societal thing to deal with publicly. But at the same time, it's my reality, and it's a part of my point of view, and it's a part of who I am, and it's a part of how I communicate. And so you're going to relate to it, because guess what? At least 3 of the people in my audience are going to be poor too.
It's. I mean, there's
more than 3.
Well, yeah, in 2019.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a thing in the United States. Again, going back to when I was talking to the woman driving the Lyft today, where it feels shameful because they have tried to hide that there's these structures that impoverish people, and that's just part of what capitalist structures do: impoverish a large mass of people in order to enrich a handful.
I hate it until I have a lot of money.
I know. I mean, I do wonder. I'm like, how if ever Naomi and I become very wealthy, how much will I stick to my socialist beliefs?
Oh, I think always. I often think about that. I know my mom came into a lot of money. So when my mom divorced my dad, there was a lot of abuse in that relationship, and she had no college education. She had no money. She had no work on her own. She had to exist. She had to, figure out who she was after she divorced my dad. And my dad got custody of us because she had no means of taking care of us. And so she went off and she invested a little bit of money that she had in this company, because her dad said invest in things people use. So she invested in some bra company, some lingerie company. And that was in 86. And then for 10 years, she just sat on it, and it would grow interest, lose money, gain money. And then all of a sudden it was the Wonder Bra. And it was the thing that created the Wonder Bra. And she came into a shit ton of money real quick. And I think this speaks to my character, at least. My mom knew, okay, I have these kids. We live in a really shitty home. We have no money. And we have a little bit of money, working class. And so she bought a big house so that everyone could have their own room. That was a big thing for her to have, that everyone had to have their own room for the first time in our lives. And then we went back to being working class, and she was able to, the house was bought, so she got the things she needed, and she had to keep working, so it was this sort of idea of I know if I got money, I would take care of the things I need to take care of. And then I don't think I'm ever going to stop working, because that's just in my nature. I can't not work or create or do the things that even just last night, going as Sadie Pines to a fucking bar, and I did a stupid lip sync to that Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall YouTube video. I did a stupid lip sync to that and made people laugh for a little bit and made some money and came home, and that was and even just doing that is I would never not want to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even if I had money, why would I not want to do that? That's amazing. People responded in a great way.
But was there any shame? Because the capitalist class does try to hide the structures so that it looks like it is a personal failing.
Yeah.
It does feel like there's a lot of shame in being poor,
of course,
even though there shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be. Just like during chemo, I lost most of my teeth and had to spend 1.5 years walking around toothless. And the shame that people give you because they see toothless as poor or you don't have access to money or whatever. But in reality, I was going through chemo. I couldn't get fake teeth put in because my body wouldn't accept them. And there's this shame attached to these things that there shouldn't be shame attached to, like teeth. I mean, teeth. You walk around and someone's, bald or they have a glass eye, you don't necessarily think they're poor, but yet the bald person probably could go buy Rogaine if they, you know what I mean? Like there are solutions, but it's like we apply shame in the most ridiculous ways because that's what society has told us. That's what you're supposed to be ashamed of. When in reality, it's like these things give me strength. Like they give me a reason to go on stage and do the things that I do and talk about the things that I want to talk about. And it's, yeah, I mean, but then again, that's just my personality, and I totally understand. Like when Michael and I went back to St. Louis, and we talk about people who choose to sort of live a very sort of traditional life and everything, and to me that seems horrible. That seems like the worst. Like the idea of going to a job and getting a regular pay and coming home at night and eating dinner and then just watching TV for the rest of the night and not having anywhere to perform or to do anything, like that would drive me insane. But I also know that like there's no shame in being normal. You know what I mean? It's just different from what I understand. And I would never try to be normal because I pity that. But I don't necessarily hold it against them. Although I wish sometimes they would let their freak flag fly.
So did the shame bounce off of you when you were a kid, or did you feel, because again, you're painting this picture of you as like this kind of confident kid who is confident in their otherness in some way, right? Did you absorb the shame? Did it just bounce off of you?
I think you take everything that comes your way and you, I think, internalize it. And I'm sure I was sad at some things, of course, but I also, again, coming back to finding anything to create and to maybe hopefully make money off of, I'll use it to be like last night, for example, some drunk woman said to me, she said I would be stunning if I lost weight. And which is like an insult. I mean, it's a direct insult to my physical self. And of course, I took that as an insult. I read it immediately as an insult. I was sober. I knew exactly what she was saying. And I was just like, bitch, I am stunning. Like, this is stunning. You couldn't do this. This is stunning. And there's no shame in you not being able to do this because I know you can't. But appreciate that I can. And I appreciate that you are here existing and living your best life. You don't need to shame me just because you can't be this. Love yourself.
Yeah, I'm so confused by this because I think like Nicole Byer was talking about she it's tough for her to do jokes because she says something like she on her last special she was talking about like she has like a bunch of like fat jokes and she'll go out and she'll be like say something about like her being fat and then the audience goes like, no, you're beautiful, and she's like, I'm both.
Yeah.
She's like,
I don't have to be one or the other.
Don't deny reality. I mean, but I am also beautiful.
Exactly. Like I don't need, you don't need to just say or to make me feel better. I mean, you can be so many different things.
Yeah, that kind of confidence is so foreign to me. I'm so ashamed of my entire existence.
Well, I'm ashamed of some things about me. I mean, it's not like there are things that I don't like. I mean, yes, I could afford to lose some weight or I could afford to, do certain things or work out. I don't understand. but like there are things that I could do. I just don't feel like I need to do them to be amazing because I know I am amazing. Is that arrogant?
No. Well, no, it's just, it's so foreign to me. It's such a foreign kind of point of view that that's why I'm like trying to figure out.
But I mean, I think it's just, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just, I feel good about myself and I hope others look at me. And I mean, my main thing is that, and which is why after cancer, I decided to sort of focus on my own work and do my own thing. My main thing is I hope that others, because part of being an artist is people receiving your art. And I hope people look at me and they take something positive from it, even if they disagree with something I'm saying. At least it's engaging them to think in a different kind of way. And it's like, that's all I want is for people to not to feel better about themselves from looking at me, because that's bullshit and that's arrogance, but to hear something I'm saying and then maybe be like, oh, maybe I can think about this, or maybe I can do this, or maybe that's something they didn't even know, and that's a really exciting thing about being an artist.
We're close to the end, but there's a couple of things I want to sew up.
Sew it up.
What attracted your mom to your dad in the first place?
His mustache.
Did he convert to Mormonism?
No, he did not.
So how did that work? You grew up Mormon. He just didn't go to church?
My dad raised us Mormon, and even though he wasn't Mormon, he decided to honor my mom's wishes by raising us Mormon, and we would go to, church, and he wouldn't go. He would drop us off. He'd pick us up like it was a thing. And then when we moved in with my mom eventually, my dad had many different marriages, and after his third marriage, he decided to give us to our mom, and he moved to Germany and got married a bunch more times. But yeah, I mean, it was just sort of, again, the confidence of my mom to be like, we're weird, who cares?
Was he difficult to get along? I mean, you just alluded to the fact that he is a serial.
He's an asshole.
Serial asshole. Yeah. Serial married person. I don't know.
He's an asshole. He's a horrible human being. But don't hold that against him, because there's lots of horrible people out there, and I know part of my personality comes from him. I get that, and I used to feel a lot of shame around that, because I didn't want to be associated to this person and be like this person. But I recognize that there are things that I took from him that give me strength, and that make me who I am, which took a while to sort of accept. That said, I also accept that he's a huge asshole who is different from me in so many ways that, I mean, we haven't talked since 97. So he was an asshole pre 97. I don't know about him being an asshole now, although there are some things I do know that make him an asshole. But that said, I don't hold any grudge or anything against him. It's just, he is just what he is. Yeah. I
mean, did you come to that? Did you come to accept that? Or was there a period, in other words, was there a period where you're like you seem kind of sanguine about it now, but was it a struggle to get to this point? Or,
I mean, it was a struggle because you want to have a relationship with your parent. Like, you want to be able to connect with your parent and have your parent praise you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not that he didn't praise me. He was always very, I think he just kind of gave up on me because he knew I was so persistent on doing what I wanted to do that I would just do it. And even the women he married allowed me to be weird and different and stuff. Like, he married this woman, Linda, who was a monster of a woman, but she saw that I was a weirdo, and instead of me going to play t-ball or whatever, her and I would go to like my first concert was Belinda Carlisle, and the second one was Madonna in 87, and it was like she recognized that I was this weird kid who needed to be introduced to other things, and I'm grateful for that, even though she's a monster. And it's just, it took a while to get over that connection to him. But there are little things now that I am sort of like the money thing. I mean, it's ironic that I keep talking about money, but when I got sick, there was like a book deal, and he read about it somewhere, and then he emailed my manager about getting money, and it was a whole thing. And I thought to myself, I mean, I wouldn't do that, but good on him for chasing the money. You know what I mean? Like, good on him for chasing the gig. Like, I get it. Like, I would never ever do that, but get that gig.
I mean, where does he come from? Like, why? Do you know why he's such an asshole?
I don't. I mean, his parents were assholes.
So it's genetic.
Every single one of my grandparents were assholes, except for my step grandparents. My mom married this man, Charlie, and his parents were not. His father was an asshole, but his mother wasn't an asshole. But all of my grandparents, except for my step grandmother, has been an asshole.
Like, is there in any specific ways, or just like generally unpleasant?
Assholes. They were unpleasant. They would yell and scream and hit and sort of just be real asshole. I mean, my mom's mom was just an asshole, just a real cunt. And I mean, I guess my mom's dad, because my mom was adopted, so I don't know her real parents, but her adopted parents, her adopted dad was a nice man, but I didn't really know him that well. But her mother was an asshole.
Did she always know she was adopted, or did she like find that out at some point?
She knew she was adopted. She didn't know the whole story about her past family. She's since learned a lot of stuff, but yeah, she always knew she was adopted.
I wonder if that gave her the space.
This actually, to answer your earlier question about how she got to this, I think this might be the reason. So when she was adopted with her younger sister, 2 years younger, Mary, who was also an asshole, and they were adopted together. But my grandmother didn't want to adopt 2 kids. She only wanted a younger kid, Mary. But my grandpa knew my mother's birth father, who had committed suicide, and that's how this whole thing happened. And so out of respect to them, he was like, we have to adopt this other girl. We can't not adopt this other girl. And my grandmother was very hesitant of adopting my mom, and it was always really evident in my mom's childhood that she wasn't the one that was wanted. And I think in some way that caused my mom to create this personality for herself where she just kind of did her own thing. And maybe that's where I get it. I don't know. Did we come to something here? I feel like we had like a Dr. Phil aha moment.
Maybe. I mean, the last piece that I wrote down earlier was thinking about the Midwest repression. Mm-hmm. And do you have that in you? And
I don't feel like there is Midwest repression, though. I feel like there's a Midwest sensibility of manners and please and thank you. And I think that's what I really take out of the Midwest is that I'm always very conscious of like being pleasant, like not a total asshole. Like even when I am an asshole, I want to be a pleasant asshole. And so like I'm very conscious of that, of sort of my manners and how I exist in the world and please and I mean, that's how I knew Michael was a good guy for me, is that like we're very overly thankful at restaurants and we tip and we're very and it is a very sort of Midwestern sensibility to be very gracious for everything. And I am that way. And I used to think that was an obnoxious trait of mine, but now I'm really happy about it and I think it's a strength of mine. It can be annoying, but like and that's what I get from the Midwest is that I'm nice.
That feels like actually a good place to end. Yeah. How do you feel?
I feel I'm nice. I feel nice.
Thank you for coming over.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh, bye, oh, bye.